Gojo vs Sukuna is probably one of the most highly anticipated fights of the past decade, and for good reason. Even ignoring the popularity of JJK within the anime community itself and just focusing on the core fanbase, it's clear that these two characters tend to drive a lot of the discussion, especially when it comes to power scaling within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. The main reason for this is that they're stated and shown to be the strongest characters in the manga, along with being on opposite sides of the current conflict. And while conflict is very important as it feeds into the narrative itself, I would argue that most readers are more interested in finally getting confirmation on who's the strongest between Gojo and Sukuna. My problem is that this fight might not deliver the clarity most readers are looking for, and that's mostly due to the additional power-ups each character received since the battle between them was first teased. To get where I'm coming from, we first need to understand that current Sukuna is way stronger than the past version of himself, in that Sukuna is stated to be a human who existed over 1000 years ago during the golden age of Jujutsu sorcery. It's said that after his death, he traversed the ages as a cursed object, later revealed to be his 20 fingers. What's interesting here is that Gojo himself said that Sukuna's fingers are getting stronger with each passing day. Mind you, Sukuna has been this way for hundreds of years, which means that's the amount of time these fingers have been left to gather power. Now, some interpret this to mean that the fingers are regaining their original strength, but why wouldn't Gojo have said that if that's what he meant? It's more likely that we're supposed to interpret the statement in the way it's presented, which would lead to Sukuna himself getting stronger over time. Now, there is another statement which more so implies that some of the fingers hold more power than the others, or at least that's how some readers have chosen to interpret that statement. In essence, it says that there are some fingers with a large overwhelming presence, others have kept quiet, and some have already been consumed by a cursed spirit, which is more so saying that some fingers are emitting cursed energy while others are not, thus keeping quiet. This likely means that the ones that are quiet have a stronger seal, or the seal hasn't lost as much strength as the others. This makes sense because back in chapter 1 we see that the cursed spirit started to arrive in full force after Yuji's friend removed the seal from Sukuna's finger, which means that even though Megumi theorized that the seal itself is so weak at this point in time that it might as well be considered paper, it still had enough strength to suppress the energy emitted from Sukuna's finger. So if we take everything that happened into full context, the statement is more so pointing towards some fingers being suppressed rather than being less powerful. This conclusion is also supported by how Kenjaku gauges Jogo's power using Sukuna's finger amount. If all the fingers weren't equal in power, this metric wouldn't even make sense. What we should also consider is that Sukuna is stated to have split his soul into cursed objects, meaning each finger has a portion of his soul. This is why his fingers are able to generate his cursed energy specifically. What's within these fingers isn't just a portion of Sukuna's cursed energy but also a part of his soul. This makes sense since there's an obvious difference between someone having the cursed energy of Sukuna, for example Yuji, who is now stated to be drenched in Sukuna's cursed energy, or Yuji prior, who possessed the soul of Sukuna himself in the form of the finger he ingested. This is similar to the Nine Tails in Naruto. Everyone who gets his chakra doesn't suddenly have a version of the Nine Tails within themselves, but Minato was different since he used the Death Reaper seal to split the Nine Tails soul in half. That way he had half of the Nine Tails that was completely independent of the one inside of Naruto. The same principle applies here with Sukuna and his fractured soul. This leads us to chapter 222, where Sukuna consumes 4 more fingers, making it a total of 19 fingers consumed. This leaves 1 finger outstanding, which Sukuna feels Gojo has possession of. His reasoning for this is that Gojo likely hid the finger so that Yuji wouldn't get executed, since the deal with the higher-ups is that they wouldn't kill Yuji until he has consumed all of Sukuna's fingers, which makes perfect sense. The issue here is that Sukuna then says that he can easily make up for 1 finger's worth of power. He does this by consuming his mummified corpse Kenjaku delivered to him earlier on. The problem here is that even though Sukuna says that he can make up for the power with his mummified body, what this likely means is that he's just absorbing the cursed energy left over within that body. That could certainly increase its power and might be equivalent to the power within 1 finger, however it doesn't replace the soul that is stored within the finger he doesn't have. This possibly means that the amount of cursed energy Sukuna would be able to generate if his soul was fully intact is way higher than what it is now. So yes, I'm both arguing that Sukuna is way stronger than he was in the past, but also that he's not at full capacity in current time. However, the biggest problem isn't Sukuna's power growing stronger over time. That's completely natural, and you could argue that it's still his power, so it doesn't matter. The biggest issue is the Megumi/10 Shadows amp he received after switching bodies. We have to remember that Gojo saw potential in Megumi surpassing him, or at least getting on his level, especially with the history of the 10 Shadow user going up against the Limitless/6 Eye user and matching his power. Well, at least both of them died at the end of their battle. Now you could argue that it's possible that it was due to Mahoraga or the other shadows within the 10 Shadows rather than the user's physical prowess, but we don't know for sure. What we do know is that in chapter 223, Gojo said that he can go all out since Sukuna is in possession of Megumi's body, which likely means that Gojo feels that Sukuna will be able to tap into Megumi's full potential, not only as a 10 shadow user but also as a true sorcerer. This is even shown to be the case with Sukuna showing a greater understanding of the Shikigami within the 10 shadows and manipulating the stability of the shadow to gain different results. Not only that, at the end of the battle versus Yorozu, Sukuna received an item she created using her curse technique. We didn't see what it was, but it will likely play a part in his fight versus Gojo. Speaking of Gojo, his problem is very similar to Sukuna's, in that it's unclear as to whether this is his true power. If we go back to chapter 223, this is where we found out that Utohime's curse technique is called Solo Prohibition Zone. It said that any sorcerers of her choosing, including Utohime herself, will have their curse energy reserve and output temporarily enhanced as long as they remain in range. Not only that, it stated that using a ritual to channel her curse technique, she was able to achieve 120% of its normal effect. The ritual it's referring to is basically her doing incantations, hand signs, dances, and having instruments playing. So basically she boosted the power to boost people. This was then applied to Gojo, who also did his own ritual to boost his power, which then allowed him to use Hollow Purple at 200% output. The issue here is that we have no idea if Gojo is still being boosted against Sukuna, since the parameters for Utohime's technique were never truly established. Like, we know it has a range, but what is that range? We know the power is temporary, but for how long? This might seem like me nitpicking, but it really isn't, especially when it comes to power scaling. These small things can totally change the conversation when it comes to getting to the bottom of who's actually the strongest at rest. In the fight itself, we can see that Gojo is taking the charge. He's the one landing the hits, dodging the attacks, and sending Sukuna flying. However, the argument would be that Gojo is still boosted beyond his natural power output, which naturally affects how they perform physically. By the way, as I mentioned earlier, this is the same for Sukuna since he's amped on Megumi's power. Whether you think the power is on Gojo's level or not is completely irrelevant, since 1 plus 0.5 is still 1.5, not the opposite. Then we have to factor in Sukuna tapping into Megumi's true power, making him stronger than he was before. In essence, this is a battle between frauds, or battle of the frauds, in that neither of the two are using just their natural powers. Sukuna's situation is even more uncertain, since we can't confirm if he's truly at 100% since he lacks a portion of his soul. I really wish we just got a fight between full power Sukuna or full power Gojo and 20 finger Sukuna within his original body. That way we wouldn't have this many variables to consider when power scaling these two characters. What I do know for sure is that Sukuna versus Gojo is a topic we'll be arguing till the end of time, similar to Goku versus Vegeta or Naruto versus Sasuke, even though Naruto is clearly stronger, but you get my point. Now, this isn't the end of the world, because what could happen is that Sukuna might leave Megumi's body some way, somehow. He did consume his original body, so I think Sukuna going into his original body is completely out of the realm of possibility. But it's possible that he might leave his body to go into another body, but then we might run into the same issue with Sukuna being amped by somebody else. The worst case scenario, that person being Gojo himself. And then of course we have Gojo. We might leave the realm or the range of Utohime's technique, and that might actually be confirmed in the chapter itself, and it's possible that he's not amped later on in the fight. So I think it could maybe play out that way, but then we have the problem of Sukuna again not being at full power because he doesn't have a part of his soul, which I think is very important in the world of JJK, and I think that's been mentioned multiple times, the similarities or the comparison between the body and the soul and all that jazz. I do think curse energy itself is connected to the soul itself, or Sukuna wouldn't be able to produce his curse energy in Yuji's body by Yuji consuming a part of his soul. You know, it just makes perfect sense. So it could play out that way, or maybe not, we'll see. All in all, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I do have a video coming out talking about how Sukuna might be able to defeat Gojo, because there's actually a very easy way for Sukuna to bypass infinity, which I don't see anyone talking about, so look out for a video on that specific topic. With that being said, let me know your thoughts on this video. Drop a like if you like the video, comment down below if you have something to say, and also subscribe if you're new for more JJK content, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.